Yes, it is August time again. I learned the hard way that it is all about the preparation. You put in the hours on the bike, whether that's indoor or outdoor, you've got to be prepared. The August is coming up yet again, and in fact, a bumper year of cycling events. I am so happy to have Ben Capistano, the consultant with the Discovery High Performance Centre of the Sports Science Institute of South Africa. Give me a high five just for that title, man. But Ben, great to have you in studio.
Thanks for having me.
What an unbelievable year we've got ahead of us. The epic, the August. It is vital that we get the preparation in now. Now, I was joking about having a little lack of preparation, but we learned. We hurt during the race, but what an awesome experience. So what are the main mistakes that someone like me, a newbie to the world of cycling, can make when approaching training?
Graham, I think the most common mistakes we see are people failing to structure their training. So not having a plan and then just sort of either grabbing the bike, heading out from the garage and just riding their bike day in, day out. So definitely try and structure a program, and that program should generally be what we call periodized. And periodization is the systematic order of smaller training periods, which we call training blocks, into in a progressive way that goes from the least specific to the most specific. And generally what we do is we use 4 phases. We start with a strength phase, where the goal of that phase is to increase your leg musculature. And then we move on to a base phase, which is just all about improving aerobic conditioning. Then an intermediate intensity phase, where we start to increase the intensity a little bit, but we start to drop the volume. And that's all about increasing what we call your functional threshold. And that's the maximum intensity you can sustain for a prolonged period of time, roughly about an hour. And then we move on to the high intensity phase, and that's sort of the cherry on top. Ideally, if you're targeting an event, you want to be sort of hitting it from about 20 weeks out. That allows you for roughly 4 weeks in each of those phases, and you can separate them each with a recovery week or rest week, just to make sure that you get rid of all that fatigue from the previous block, and then you're going into the other block fresh.
So that was the one thing that was counting in my favour, not preparing at all for last year's August, was I didn't have that fatigue.
At least you were well rested, yeah.
But you really do learn all about the mental aspects as well. Now, I was really impressed to see how many of the athletes, especially for something like an epic, come out here, spend 3 months training in the winelands. That's great, but often you don't have that luxury. You have to train indoors, you have to adjust your training. What is the difference between training in an indoor environment and training out on the road?
Well, gratefully, there's no real difference. So as long as you can hit or complete the session that's prescribed, it doesn't really matter where your location is. So whether it be an indoor spinning bike at the gym, an indoor trainer, if you use that, rollers, any sort of indoor training facility, and you're fine, you're good to go. The main goal is obviously just to make sure that you can complete the session as prescribed. The one sort of aspect where training outdoors or training more specifically might be more beneficial is mountain biking. So we recommend that if you're training specifically for a mountain bike event, don't spend all your training indoors, just so you can hone your skills a bit in a single track. I was going to say,
because there's a skill element to riding out on the track, You know, we talk about this all the time, and I think one area that has become hugely important for me in all sports activity, diet, is absolutely vital. How do we approach diet in training and then building up to these big events, these real grueling events?
From my point of view, diet and training go almost hand in hand. It's like a 50-50% contribution to performance. Your diet needs to be able to sustain your imposed training load. So if your diet's inadequate, your training is not going to be effective. It's going to negatively affect your recovery as well. And then basically it's going to devalue all the work that you're doing on the bike. So paying specific attention to your training, to your nutrition off the bike as well as on the bike is vital.
So it's holistic.
Yes,
it really
absolutely.
is. So now we've put in the hard yards, we've trained, we've got it right, we have the right kind of mindset going into that final event, and now it's arrived. What do we do to make sure that we get the most out of our bodies, out of our bike, out of our performance on race day?
Well, on race day, you can almost split things up to making sure that the bike's correct, and then obviously making sure you're correct. Hopefully, by the time you're hitting a race day, you're in great condition, so there's nothing to worry about there. But your bike is obviously an important part of the equation as well. So if you haven't had it done before you start training, get a bike fitment done, just to make sure that your settings are correct.
Vital. I will tell you now. Vital. After riding 12 kilometers with one gear, I can say that is vital. Yeah.
And then just have it serviced about a week or 2 before, and then ride it in that week before the events as well, just to make sure everything's working. Your brakes are working, your gears are working, etc. Then make sure that your nutrition's dialed for the day. You know exactly, you have a good nutrition strategy. What are you going to drink? Are you going to take any gels or bars on at what point? If you're doing a road race like the August, it's always a good idea to drive the route beforehand. So that gives you an idea of what's coming, what to expect, and also improves your pacing strategy dramatically, because you've got knowledge of the task, so you know what's coming, and that definitely improves your training. We try and recommend not that you race with on rested legs. So try and do an easy session the day before, probably an hour to an hour and a half, and include little 2-minute accelerations just to bring your heart rate up. That just makes sure that your legs are nice and loose for race day, and that you're not racing on sort of tired or sleepy legs. And then by the time, hopefully, you reach race day, 95% of the work's done. So it's just really go out there and enjoy it.
I was going to say, just savor the moment, and I would recommend doing it with mates. And you can check on your screen now. We've got a couple of the big events coming up. Of course, the Cape Argus on the 9th of March down here in Cape Town. Then the big one that brings out the superstars of cycling at the moment from the 23rd to the 30th of March, the Cape Epic. Then up in Mpumalanga from the 8th to the 12th in April, the Mzansi Tour. But you can see a ton of awesome cycling events that you can take part in. Where can we find out information like this or get guidance if we need to?
The Sports Science Institute's website as well has loads of information and all our contact details. So if anyone needs to get hold of us, just go through the website.
And awesome, man. I wish I could have
Thanks very much,
met
Graham.
you last year, dude. Awesome, guys. You know what you do to prepare yourself for the big grueling events. There is no reason why you can't tackle these things that you will remember literally for the rest of your life. Awesome to be a part of that with my Expresso team last year. You can do the same. We're going to take a quick break, then we continue with what is promising to be a very inspiring, youthful Wednesday morning on Expresso.